Now, and if you're Scottish, you'll know that tonight is,
Burns Night.
It is indeed, but perhaps you won't know, it's also the 20th anniversary of a Burns Night storm which rocked the region.
The Michael Fish Great Storm, that was the one in 1987, that got all the coverage. But it was the Burns Night storm just a couple of years later which hit this region even harder, as Claire McGlasson has been finding out.
It was the storm of the 20th century. On this day, exactly 20 years ago, winds topping 100 miles an hour tore across the country. Anglia News reported as the region started to pick up the pieces.
Fallen trees, fallen fences and fallen roofs made it a fraught time for thousands of people.
Heavy weather in the North Sea capsized a tug off Lowestoft as it tried to help a German ship struggling in the heavy seas.
2 men were killed when the pickup truck they were travelling in on the Hemel Hempstead to Leighton Buzzard Road was hit by a falling tree.
Nationally, 47 people lost their lives, a higher toll than the so-called Great Storm of 1987. The winds were faster, the damage more widespread. The difference was, forecasters knew this storm was coming. But the Burns Night storm of 1990 still cost the insurance industry an estimated £2 billion.
At our claims department in Lincoln, which covers the Lincolnshire area, they've received 300 claims so far since yesterday evening.
Gerald Rolfe from Ely in Cambridgeshire has been a weather correspondent for Anglia for 40 years. He says it was a storm to remember.
It was pretty awful, really. I mean, the pressure on you is so great that all you want to do, really, is sort of hide behind something big and get out of it. But it's a thing that doesn't happen that often in this country. But when it does, it really sort of brings it home to you how some other parts of the world live. And I remember having to go into Cambridge. The main A14 was totally blocked by turned over vehicles. Anyway, I got back to our works at Over and found that 2 of our people had fork trucks. They were trying to hold up an internal wall that was wobbling because of the pressure on the outside of the building. On our way home that night, there was a lorry in the river near Erith, which looked as if it had just been picked up off the road and dropped literally into the middle of the river.
In Basildon, 70 people had to be temporarily rehomed after the roof was torn from their block of flats. Roads were blocked, trains cancelled after power lines were blown down.
Eastern Electricity say the inhabitants of Canvey Island are among the 100,000 who have so far suffered power failures.
24 hours later, 250,000 still had no electricity, which was causing a few problems for some of the residents of Colchester Zoo. The army was drafted in with a generator to keep the cold-blooded reptiles warm. Anthony Tropiano remembers.
The army very generously lent us a generator that we hooked up into this reptile area, and that kept us going for the week. And then it was really, the next 2 weeks we spent just trying to clear the place up, and it was a very long and protracted experience for us.
And the wild weather didn't stop there. February 1990 was the windiest month of the 20th century. The region had to batten down the hatches until well into March. Claire McGlasson, Anglia News.
Do you remember that one, the Burns Night storm?
Do you know what I have to say? I really don't. I must have been going to school in Suffolk on that day. I have not got any memories of it at all.
I do remember the 87 one, clearly, because, again, as we were hearing there, at night time, I remember waking up in the morning, pulling open the curtains, and my goodness, what a big night that was.
It's true, isn't it?
I don't remember it being quite like that.
Well, Rachel joins us now in the studio. Rachel, why do people remember the Great Storm of 1987 and not so much this storm back in 1990?
Well, yes, as you were saying, I mean, it was notoriously underplayed by weather forecasters, so perhaps people remember it for that. And then a couple of years later, with the Burns Night storm, well, it was accurately predicted, lots of warnings were given, so perhaps that makes it a little bit less memorable. So in our region, well, the strongest winds during Burn Night were during around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There was gusts of nearly up to 100 miles per hour there at Great Gaddesden in Hertfordshire. So it is fair to say that it was the UK storm of the 20th century. So nothing like that on the horizon, but yes, it was certainly a massive storm.
OK, well, thank you. Luckily, nothing like that on the horizon now.
No,
so
no,
you're not gonna...
it's looking much calmer at the moment.
Rachel here later on in the programme as well with more on that weather. Now then, a story we've covered heavily here in Anglia. One of the world's top football freestylers from Milton Keynes. He's preparing to attempt yet another world record. That's tomorrow. Dan
Magness already holds the record for doing Keepy-Uppys for a solid 24 hours. I'm sure you remember that. Now he's got his sights set on another challenge, and Kate Prout has been to find out what it is.
My name's Dan Magness. I'm a world record holder for football freestyle.
You may remember last May, Dan set a new world record for Keepy-Uppys, performing for 24 hours solid in London's Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, I couldn't believe the response and stuff. Like, obviously, when I finished looking around, there were so many people there, and yeah, it was absolutely amazing. There was loads of people sort of emailing me and calling me saying, "Oh, well done" and stuff. So yeah, it was absolutely brilliant.
Tomorrow's record attempt involves keeping the ball in the air once again, but while also walking between 5 London Premier League football clubs. A trip that should take him about 10 hours. Dan is starting his epic journey at Fulham at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. He'll then make his way to Chelsea, a quick stop off at Trafalgar Square, before heading to West Ham and Arsenal, and then finishing his Keepy-Uppy marathon at Tottenham around tea time, a total distance of 30 miles. The current record is 26 miles. Now, Dan is allowed to drop the ball, but says he doesn't intend to, and of course there will be comfort breaks. It's all part of a pre-World Cup fundraising project, which involves one football being kicked all the way from London to South Africa.
So the last time we saw Dan down in London, he did about 250,000 Keepy-Uppys in 24 hours. Tomorrow, about 100,000. It'll be a walk in the park.
Fortunately, his skills are slightly better than mine.
Do you ever wake up in the morning and think, maybe I should get a proper job?
Yeah, every morning, yeah. And then I think, nah, there's no point really. If I can keep doing this, I mean, I don't know how many more years I'll have in me, but I'm sure that I can keep going at it, and just as long as I keep on top and keep breaking the world records and stuff, there's nothing stopping me from continuing doing it.
With 4 world records already under his belt, you can guarantee Dan won't be taking his eye off the ball while he goes for his 5th. Kate Prout, Anglia News, Milton Keynes.
He's so cool, isn't he?
It will be a stroll in the park if he's going to do that all the way to South Africa as well for the World Cup.
I wonder what sort of muscles he's building up there. Maybe very big thigh
big
muscles.
Big ones, I think, yeah, and neck as well.
Now, here's what to expect on the National News in just a couple of minutes.
But tell us exactly what the weather forecast is for tonight and into tomorrow. Here's Rachel. It would be good to get a bit of sun, wouldn't it? The relentless grey at the moment we're getting.
Would
now,
be lovely.
Burns night, haggis.
Oh, what's in haggis?
Well, it's lamb's stomach to start off with, and inside there's a bit of beef, I think, and a few other offal.
Sounds
few
lovely.
Spices, I think.
Do you think they do vegetarian options?
Actually, I think they do a veggie haggis. No, I think they do. I think you'd be all right, actually. The other one, I might join you.
Oh, well, happy Burns night. We'll see you tomorrow, I hope.
Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.